Right, so you've got to the distinction part. This is the final task I'm setting. The assignment is now live, but this follows the last pieces of work that you're asked to do in the assignment. It follows two distinction tasks. One is evaluating the importance of following legislation and rules, that's D1, and evaluating the benefits of measuring and enabling improvements to customer services. That's D2. So, for D1, what you're being asked to do is evaluate the importance of good customer service that follows rules and legislation in a named company. So I recommend Lush or the Ritz. It's a continuation of task 4. There you were asked what were the benefits and maybe drawbacks of the customer service following laws and regulations in general. Sorry, that's task 4 and 5. So you have already said what are the legislation, what are the rules that they have to follow, and you've also said here are some good things about following the laws, and here are maybe the difficulties. It might cost you more, or you might need to train staff, things like that. Now what you're doing is you're evaluating, and what we mean by that, or the way I like to think of it, is if I'm telling a client, I've been asked to do a report for a client, and they'd like to know this information, they want to know, task 4, what are the rules that they have to follow in customer services? Secondly, what are the good things about doing that and the bad things about doing that? It's task 5. And now, because they've paid you so much, what they need from you now is to finally finish off and tell them what they need to do. Do they actually need to worry about any of this? Should they go ahead and include this in their business model? So you're telling your client clearly and finally whether or not they need to follow those laws and regulations, why it's so important. You're coming down on one side or the other. You've said this would be good because this happens, customers are happier and you won't get in trouble with the law. But I have to be honest with you, you said in task 5, there are some drawbacks. It will cost you a little bit more to prepare. But when I think of it, one of the benefits is you're not going to get a big fine for your GDPR breach, things like that. So in task 5, you were balancing that. You were a bit of this and a bit of that. But now you're saying, so therefore, my conclusion is that definitely you should do. And the answer is yes, they do have to. That is the answer. So you now have to say, relating to one specific company, and I suggest Lush or the Ritz. Somebody has asked if they could use another company. If you want to, you can, but it needs to be a company, and we've done a lot on that. Whether they should or should not. Yes, they should follow the laws, and finally pushing home that explanation of why. There's no word count. In days gone by, this was done as a separate task, but because this is purely showing you can think at a higher level, you just need to write enough to show that you are concluding, you are evaluating, you are finally coming to a decision. I suggest maybe about 500 words on top of what you've done. Evaluation means balance the arguments but finish with a final decision. And the importance here, evaluating the importance of good customer service following rules and legislation, means what happens if they don't follow it. Think of legal and maybe unofficial consequences. If there's a data breach, although there will be a legal consequence, also customers may not want to trust the company with that information, for example. So that's what I want from your D1. Here is a snip of the I'm just trying to pull down this screen so you can see it. Here's a snip of the A criteria for this, and if you look, you've covered these other bits earlier, I hope. And here, things that you might want to keep in mind are understanding the risk of not dealing with those. Actually, sorry, I don't include that one. That was about complaints. But here, and that was an earlier task. So here, the implications for the business of not meeting the requirements, the legal and regulatory requirements. So here, things you ought to include: customer protection. Distance selling may be an issue, maybe. Sale of goods, what you have sold them must match what they get. Health and safety, you must make sure that labelling is good and clear and accurate. If somebody has an allergy, there can be disastrous consequences. There have been reports in the last few years of restaurants that didn't specify particular ingredients and people become ill or died from that. That could affect Lush or the restaurant or the hotel. They must make sure that they have things like fire safety regulations. Data protection. So consumer protection is protecting consumers from mis-selling and things like that. Data protection is protecting their data. And customers, we've talked about customers, and that was one of the aspects earlier on about different aspects of customers, different types of customers. You must adhere to equal opportunities. So those are some of the things you might talk about. In the second distinction, it asks you to evaluate the benefits of improving customer service. So here we're talking about, should we actually bother to make improvements? You have earlier on talked about how businesses can measure and make opportunities for improving customer service. What are the benefits? What are the drawbacks? I'm really sorry, I've just seen here is task 5 and 6. So the previous one is, as I have put in the side task 4. So let me come back to the... So here in D2, you're asking what are the benefits of making customer service better. So you've looked at how they measure customer satisfaction and how they make opportunities and plan for allowing for improvement. They can measure it with questionnaires, secret shoppers, qualitative responses such as customer feedback forms and customer complaint forms, or quantitative such as those press button tags, scale of 1 to 5, of how satisfied people are. And you've already talked about the benefits and drawbacks of different techniques and the benefits and drawbacks of making opportunities, different ways that the business can allow for your service to be improved further and further. So in this one, you are, as I said before, the evaluation, it's balancing, but coming down here to a final decision for your client. Now, I don't want to confuse you, but this one doesn't necessarily have to be a specific company for D2, but you may wish to follow the examples we've been using. You are asked in particular to consider to evaluate the benefits to the business as a whole. Think about their profits, think about the customer numbers. You're asked to think about the benefits to the customers of improving customer service and the company making plans to improve it. And you are thinking of the ways, the benefits to employees of taking in information about customer services, evaluating it, and allowing opportunities for companies to improve it. So you're looking at a balance of arguments. It's an evaluation, but your client wants to know definitively, is it worth it? So you remember there are costs to it, but there are overall a decision to be made, a recommendation to your client. And as I say, it should be a final yes, no, but the only answer is yes, they should. And you need to include talking about the impact on the business, the impact on the customer, and the impact on the employees of improving customer services. This is much broader than the first layer. You're thinking about the ripples outwards. What do you recommend for them? I would suggest about 100 words maybe each of the business, the customer and employees. That's about 300 overall. That's less than we would have had in our prior iterations of this qualification, but it isn't the words that are important, or rather, sorry, it isn't the word count that is important. It is that you are evaluating, you are coming to a firm, clear conclusion or decision. I prefer the word decision about what they should do and explaining why to them it is so important that they do this. And from learning aim B, which this follows, you're thinking about not so much, because this key word, this word evaluating here is you evaluating, you've done that before, why you should evaluate customer service. And you've already talked about analysing responses, things like that. Here, this is a really key part. This is what you want to be talking about. When you are talking about the benefits to the business, the customer and the employees, make sure you're talking about a reduction in the number of complaints as a benefit, as an improvement, an increase in the profits, a reduction in the turnover of the staff. That's a benefit to the company. It's an improving benefit to the staff. They feel like staying, they are happier. And to the customer and to the business, you get more repeat business from loyal customers, and customers feel happy being there. So that's what we're looking for in this distinction. I'm going to finish this here. There is actually one more slide just with some links about how to measure satisfaction, but I think why good customer service is important. That's particularly good. Why is customer service important? These two in particular could support you and give you some arguments. Remember, it's a distinction, so you need to be including references you have used. It's not a cheat to read around the subject. It makes a better argument. It is a firmer argument and a higher level skill. So the more you show you have read around, the more references you include, the more your answer is considered, the better your answer is considered. Thank you very much, and I'm about to put this live. Thanks for listening.